So I really want to show this round because it's one of the most interesting rounds I've seen in a long time, where the Mongols on T-side Inferno are going to win an eco where they have multiple Glocks who actually prioritize utility over an upgraded pistol. So you're going to see here they have 3 Glocks, and they're actually going to end up winning this round with the utility. They have a couple of players that go nade, 2 flashes, and a smoke rather than an upgraded pistol. And the key to me is how this round was set up, because this isn't an accident that G2 just happened to be in a setup that this counters. This is actually set up throughout the game. So I'll show you the round first because I don't want to bait you guys and then make you wait for it. Early on, they're just going to play super passive. They have the pistols trying to control a little bit of the map, but the reality is when you buy this much utility, you bought it for a reason, so you want to make sure that you're not dying willy-nilly and you're not just letting yourself get taken out. They were setting up towards B, and they probably had an idea what to do if that utility wasn't thrown, but I think that's the utility they were expecting given the way a couple of previous rounds had gone. They're now going to set up towards A, and they know G2 are likely to be in a very passive setup, and one of the positions you're expecting in that type of passive setup is absolutely someone to be in Big Pit. For that reason, they're actually just going to run out and triple nade stack Mauls, but it's a lot more than just the triple nade stack, because this is a really good exec with flashes landing as they're already around corners, and Hunter will actually get himself a kill, but instantly traded by 2 players popping in from above, and m0NESY gets taken down coming through the smoke. So you have an A take that actually gets them site control 3 for 1. And let me remind you, they had multiple Glocks. Now, honestly, this round wouldn't have been nearly that interesting if it was done without context. If this was just something that the Mongols ran and it happened to work, but I don't really think that's the case because G2 are a very heavy B team. They love stacking 3B, and so are Mongols actually. Both teams stack 3B the majority of their gun rounds, at least in this game. And on an anti-eco, or an anti-force at least, G2 stack 3B, try to play a little bit aggressively, and get absolutely run over. Now, the idea here for G2 was to throw some early utility, and then they were going to have Hunter, they do this a little bit later in the half, they were going to have Hunter rotate back around and flash for NiKo and Snax to actually get, you know, control towards Banana. But instead, Snax gets left on his own, NiKo gets caught in the open, and Snax catches some players with nades out, but unfortunately can't convert a single kill. So what you saw in that round was simply genius, really. It was exactly what someone would call in a pug. Who would ever expect that in a pro? I mean, look, it's just a V-rush, right? But the idea is that G2 were just punished for playing aggressive, and this is actually mentioned by Machine on the broadcast. Look at this setup that G2 now are going to play. This is an old school setup. Machine called it, Sponge agreed, I believe. This is an old school setup because traditionally, when you set up for an anti-eco, you're thinking, we're just going to get into some crossfires. We're just going to play back on site. We're not going to give them any chance to catch us off guard with nades out or to catch us, you know, in solo positions. We're just going to play all the way back. And you can tell that Mongols are kind of expecting a little bit of aggression. They have very little utility. In fact, almost nothing, right? They're not expecting to get as much control as they get here for free. And unfortunately for the Mongols, I mean, when you're in this situation, you can try and swing out and get a kill, and once in a while that's going to work out for you. But the reality is that when the CTs are back in these passive setups, if you don't have utility to bust out of it, you're just going to get mowed down and traded out pretty much every time. So the Mongols, they're expecting likely another passive play because why change what already worked? Why change that type of setup when you just won an anti-eco with 4 players alive? And that's, I think, what they're kind of looking at when they make their way back to B. They're thinking, okay, well, if they're not going to throw that top Banana util, maybe they're going for a more aggressive setup. It was just kind of a one-time thing. But when G2 do the exact same utility that they did in the previous round, where they throw that retake top Banana util, and I don't even think they throw a flash with it, by the way, which means that they know very decently what the setup is likely to be here, that their G2 are running the exact same type of setup. And by the way, I don't think Mongols knew the exact setup that G2 were in, but they were playing that passive on B, and they were not peeking towards middle. I believe Mongols knew that as well, which means they were most likely in this exact sort of setup, and they're just ready for this triple nade in towards pit, instantly taking out mobs, and Hunter is full blind for a long time here. But the timing on this trade on Hunter is key as well, because Mazinho in apartments isn't going to try and run through the smoke. He's actually going to nade out the smoke before coming through. I think he's thinking about a player in sight that he can actually swing on and make sure he trades with his teammates. But because there's nobody in sight, then Hunter kind of only has, a couple of positions to be in, and once he shows himself, they can take him down really easily. And you can see the path from Techno 4K into the bomb site. He immediately clears out the likely crossfire positions, then they know that Hunter kind of has to be in pit at that point, and they can turn around and take him out, while you have Blitz moving his way through the bomb site at the same time that's going to be able to turn and trade on anyone coming through the smoke. So this is just a really interesting round to me, because you kind of see the years of CS all in one round, right? Where you have G2, they got countered by, an aggressive play on B, so they move more passive. And then Mongols, seeing G2 one round play more passive, they're ready immediately. They're ready to react with a play that counters that type of passivity. And it's just funny because for years people thought, yeah, you just play crossfires on the bomb site, and you're really going to be able to deal with most anti-ecos, before teams realized, hey, we can kind of counter them if they're playing that passive. There's ways to deal with that, right? And here we have, within one game, within 3 or 4 rounds, teams figure out a team is going to play passive, immediately find the counter, play that counter, and it works despite having really terrible weaponry to do so.